Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Zdenek's English podcast. It's been a while since I recorded a podcast, hasn't it? Yes, it has. You might be wondering, Zdenek, are you okay? Is everything all right? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for asking. I'm not bad. I would say not bad, not bad. As always, it could be better, it could be worse. But the reason I haven't been publishing any episodes of the podcast is because I've been busy with my other projects that I do online, and you know that I've recently published an episode. I say recently, might have been now about 3 months ago, an episode where I explain everything, and nothing has changed ever since then. It's what I have to do every single week. There is an episode for patrons, so if you want more podcasts from me, then will have to become a patron. I say you will have to, you don't have to do anything, right? It's obviously your choice, your decision. It's entirely up to you. Yeah. um this is if you just miss my voice, my podcast, you can get still some podcasts from me if you become a patron, which is very simple. Just go to podbean.com, find the next English podcast, subscribe to the next English podcast, and then click become patron. Nothing easier than that in the world, I think, these days. So, by the way, you should know that I'm recording this episode for my YouTube channel as well. What does it mean? It means that you will be able to see this as a video as well. I know what you're saying. You're saying, Zdenek, but I don't want to see you. I just want to listen. I've always just listened. That's who I am. I'm a listener. I'm a listener. I listen to podcasts. Yeah. I do a lot of things while listening to podcasts. I don't have time for watching a video. But again, you don't have to do this, okay? I'm just telling you there is an option to do this. Yeah, I know there are video people out there, people who like to see the person talking. So if you're one of those people, if you've possibly never seen me before, then again, it's quite easy. It's as easy as shooting a fish in a barrel. All you have to do is to just go to my YouTube channel, which is called Teachers Zdenek. Type in Teachers Zdenek and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. It will help the channel grow, obviously, and then you should be able to find one of the latest videos. Will be the video from this episode. But obviously, if you're listening to this as a podcast, then you will probably know that there is an audio version as well. Yeah, because if you listen to this on your phone, I don't think you can see me unless you have opened the video, which is possible these days, Denek. You can also watch videos from a mobile phone these days, Denek. Yes, I know. Okay, so what's going to happen in this episode of the next English podcast? You might be wondering, Zdenek, do you have a guest? Could you just stop this um, lengthy introduction? We are getting bored. You are getting what? Bored? How can you be bored listening to this podcast? By the way, this is foreshadowing. Yes, I'm foreshadowing what we're going to talk about today. What? What's going on? Yes, I don't want you to be bored. I don't want you to be bored. Again, more foreshadowing. The more I foreshadow it, the more obvious it will become, I suppose. All right. So in this episode, listeners, I'm alone, but technically I'm not because you're gonna hear someone else's voice as well, just not in the traditional sense. Yeah, I'm not going to be interviewing anyone, at least not this time. Um, you remember Helen, who featured in episode 402? The episode was called "The Postman's Palace," and it was about a palace made by a postman somewhere in France. And Helen, a French person, a student of mine, in fact, and the Achievers Chamber member, um, she did a fantastic job describing this story or telling us this story. So I thought I might as well have her back on the podcast in one form or another. So here she is again. But what's going to happen? And who is Helen? Like I said, Helen is a French student of mine. She's my private student and an Achievers Chamber member. She has got what's called the silver membership. Yeah, because there are three ways you can become the Achievers Chamber member. Um, Three levels of membership, three tiers. And Helen has gone for, I said silver member? No, that's wrong. Sorry. She's a gold member. My bad. My bad. I'm not going to edit this out because I don't have time for it, okay? But she is a gold member, so I'm gonna have to change it. It's in my notes here, but I think she started off as a silver member, but then she became a gold member. Anyway, the point is there are three ways you can be a member in the Achievers Chamber, which is, by the way, a Discord group that I have hopefully um, advertised enough on this podcast because I need to keep telling you guys this is a way you can work with me. It's an affordable way. What's affordable, Zdenek? Affordable means that most people should be able to afford it. Yeah. Private lessons are more expensive. Okay. Private lessons or any lessons courses you pay for when you hire English teachers, I think they're more expensive than this for sure. You can find more details about this in the description of this episode. So uh, check this out. It's a PDF document where you can read everything about it, every single detail. Yeah. You might be surprised how cheap it is. It really depends on when you are from, right? You might be from one of those countries where this is actually expensive, in which case, I'm sorry, I apologize. But I just have to be able to make ends meet in my life. Yeah. And this podcast is no longer something I do for fun. It's my way to promote myself as a teacher who works online as a self employed teacher, right? I'm a self employed teacher, so I have to do this. I'm so sorry. I know it's annoying to have to remind you all the time, but I have to. Okay. Right. Now, back to Helen. So, the way I work with Helen is first of all, she's an Achievers Chamber member, but also she's my private student. And we have got a special arrangement. Um, she always, before every single lesson we have, she sends me a recording, which is about 10 minutes long. And this is a recording on a topic she picks. It could be anything. Um, I like how this is quite creative because I always let my student choose. So it really is anything she's interested in. And she always goes for something really extraordinary and something shocking or just something she enjoys talking about. It could be anything. Could be something that has been happening in the world. It could be one of her interests or just something she finds online. Anything. And then she records a speech. Yeah, she records a speech as an MP3 and she sends it to me before our lesson. Then I listen to it and to make notes about anything that could be improved in terms of pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, you name it. And yeah, and that's how we work with each other. And I think Helen has been making a lot of progress. She's really talented because she really has things to say. You have to give it to her. She has things to say. Yeah. And I always thought I always told Helen, but this is a shame. You just send it to me, and we build a one lesson around this recording, but that's it. And then it's kind of scrapped, and no one will ever listen to it again. It's a shame. It's not that I'm gonna listen to this again, am I? I don't have time for that, and I don't think Helen will listen to it herself. That's why I keep telling Helen, this is a shame. You should make a podcast about this. You should start a podcast of these recordings because they are short. They are quite, like people like things that are short these days, right? With the short attention span they have. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a good format, good idea. I know she prepares for it. I know sometimes she does more takes as well. Can you imagine? So sometimes she records it off the cuff, just on her first take, but sometimes she does more takes until she's satisfied with the recording, which I think is a brilliant way of working with an English teacher. I honestly can't praise her enough. I know some people might not have as much time for it, might not be as dedicated as Helen is, and yeah, I think Helen deserves a lot of credit for how she is able to work on her English, how she is able to basically um, go the extra mile. Yeah, because not everyone can or is willing to do that. Because I think we are all kind of lazy by nature, including myself, and I'm sure including some of you listening to this. So Helen is just taking everything to another level, and yeah, I can't praise her enough for it. And I always give her as an example to my other students because I think this is fantastic. So I realized that I could actually play one of these. I could actually play one of these recordings on this podcast, and this just give you the taste of what these recordings are like. And you could also like message me or message Helen if you want. You will find her. She frequently likes my social media posts. So if you see someone with the name Helen liking my posts on social media, you could just click that profile and send a message to that person, right? Or she's obviously an Achievers Chamber member, as I said, so you could find her there and send her a message. She's very communicative. She's very responsive. Very approachable, and tell her what you think about these recordings. I think they're brilliant. I think more people should hear them. But I want to, in this episode, I want to play one of these recordings, the one that Helen um, made right before our latest lesson, which was on Tuesday, I believe. So I'm recording this on Thursday, right? So it's 2 days later. And this one is about boredom. Yes, it's about boredom. Why? And the idea is that Helen is going to tell us about why it might be a good idea to be bored, because we associate boredom with something negative, yeah, with something no one wants to experience, with something we're trying to avoid. But Helen uh, puts a different spin on it and explores the idea that it might actually be beneficial to us. Yeah, so that's really, I think, really interesting, and I think it's going to be a fantastic title for this episode. Very clickbaity. Yeah, why it could be something like why it's good to be bored, or why should we be bored, or something like that. It's going to be very, very uh, attractive to click on this episode. I hope so. Anyway, that's the idea. But the way I'm going to do this in this episode is that I'm going to be using my mixer, which I'm using already. So as I have already said it on this podcast, haven't I? In the introduction to the previous episode, that I can change
My voice, I can sound like a robot or a male,
female, a baby. I can
also play these buttons
You
here
have to speak English. You have to speak English.
like this, or this. Yeah, I've got a lot of options, things I can do. And one of those things I can do on this mixer is I can actually play a podcast or an MP3 into the mixer so that everybody is able to hear it. So I have prepared the recording from Helen. It is 10 minutes long. And what I will do is that I'm gonna play it to you, but I will stop the recording from time to time and just respond to it. Yeah, so it's gonna be very interactive. I hope you like it. I need you to let me know, because I know some people might not like this. So I need to get some feedback from you. Is this cool, or would you rather just let me play you the whole thing without any interruptions? Anyway, I want to try. It's an experiment. I've already done it in the previous mini lesson for patrons. So I want to get this out to more people and to get more kind of widespread feedback, because I have got just a few patrons, people who really need to hear my voice on a regular basis. Yeah, they're not as many as the actual listeners of the normal podcast, of course. But it is what it is. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's the reality. So let's go. Let me play you this recording. Here we go.
Hi everyone. So today's recording will be about boredom.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Helen has introduced the topic to us.
Uh, I was about to say I hope you will not feel bored during this recording, but
Well, Helen, we hope so too, because the last thing we want is to feel bored. I'm sure. I'm sure it's not the reason people click the play button of Zdenek's English podcast. Yeah, that's not the reason, Helen. So please try not to make people bored. I'm sure you will not do that. By the way, Helen is not scripting these episodes. What does it mean? It means that she doesn't have a script in front of her. She's not reading out from her notes. I'm not doing that either, by the way. I don't. I might have a few points here written down, but I'm not reading what I'm saying. It all comes from my head, and I've never really done it. I might have recorded like 5 episodes in total in the entire history of the Next English podcast that were fully scripted. The reason I don't do this is because it doesn't really reflect a natural way of using the language. The more you can kind of improvise, the more it's you coming up with what you are saying, the more I think the better your English will be. Try not to memorize things you say in English. Of course, you can memorize words and chunks, and that's fine, but not the entire sentences, not the whole thing. Yeah. So that's another sort of another point for Helen, or another what you might call it. I'm giving Helen more credit for this, because this is it. I would never encourage my students to actually read out from the script unless they want to work on their pronunciation, in which case it might be useful. Anyway, I'm sure you want to hear Helen. So here is Helen.
um, I'm about to explain to you why boredom is in fact good for you.
Yeah, well, I am all ears, because honestly, if someone can, you know how you do things that are like bad habits, and you kind of know you shouldn't be doing that. Sometimes it's nice if you can hear someone justify to you. It makes you feel better, right, about the bad thing you do. So let's hear it, Helen.
And while I was searching for a subject to talk about today on the internet, I came across a video from one of my, can I say, favorite, at least one of the science channel I like.
Science channels, yeah. By the way, I'm not gonna be correcting Helen in this episode. I'm not gonna be doing it, but I will record a patron only episode right after this, the so-called mini lesson, in which I correct Helen's mistakes. Yeah, there are not that many mistakes in this episode, by the way, in this recording, but there are a few to do with pronunciation and a few grammatical mistakes. And if you're curious, you will have to become the Next English Podcast patron, and you will be able to hear that episode. By the way, I've got Helen's permission to do that. I wouldn't be doing that without her green light. Yes. Another thing I want to point out is when Helen said, while I was searching on the internet or something like that, I came across, which is a very nice phrasal verb. She said, I came across, I can't remember what she said, but she came across the topic of boredom, or she came across something. I can't remember what it was, but she basically encountered something. I'm not sure I can go back like 15 seconds because I would like to do that. Okay, let me see. I could go back a little bit so that I could play you this part again, so that we hear what she came across, because as you know, my memory is like Swiss cheese, so I actually forgot what she came across. Let's hear it again.
Is in fact good for you. And while I was searching for a subject to talk about today on the internet, I came across a video.
So she came across a video. So once again, if you come across something, you kind of discover it by chance. You sort of you kind of discover it by chance. That's it. She didn't look for that video. She came across it. So she kind of found it by chance, yeah? All right.
From one of my, can I say favorite, at least one of the science channel I like. They usually talk about physics.
Oh, physics. I know nothing about physics. In fact, physics was one of my least favorite subjects at school. Can anyone relate to that?
It was more about society, sociology, maybe kind of philosophical, psychological subject. Nothing too bad, nothing to worry about.
Thank God for that, Helen. Thanks for making us feel better. Yeah.
And the title of this video was "Why Boredom is Good for You."
Yeah, well, that's very clickbaity, isn't it? And I think I'm gonna name this episode exactly in the same way.
Well, this is definitely a thought-provoking uh, not assumption, assertive declaration, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think Helen wanted to say a thought-provoking statement. Yeah, she wanted to say statement. So I don't know what just happened, but my VLC player stopped working, so I might have to find that file again and play it again because wow, what is going on? What is going on? It was going so well until this happened. Anyway, I was going to explain the word thought-provoking. I think Helen wanted to say statement, or you could say assertion or declaration. Why not? But I think the word is statement, Helen. Thought provoking. It means it's something that will make you think, right? It provokes your kind of mind. It provokes your brain to think, right? That's it. That's the idea. So yeah, it is very thought provoking and clickbaity because you really do wonder what or how this is going to be explained, how this is going to be justified. Yeah, it's very thought provoking. A very nice word indeed. Yeah. So sorry guys, I had an error in my VLC player, which is the player I'm using for playing this file, the MP3 on my phone. So I'm gonna have to quickly search for that file again and play it again. I apologize for the inconvenience. It's gonna be resolved in no time. Just give me a few seconds. I'm on it. I've already found it, and now I just need to quickly play it again and go back to where I finished. Go back to pick up where I left off. Basically, that's the phrase, right? So, yep.
Hi everyone. So today's
That's
recording
that's not
will be
that's not exactly where I left off. So I'm going to fast forward this little bit. Yeah, let's see.
not assumption, assertive declaration, something along those lines. Because what we think when we think about the good life, the life we would like to live, we usually think about having a fulfilling life, a lot of things to do, a lot of exciting projects, and time to do pleasant activities and all stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in the list of the things we think about when we think about the good life, um, most likely there is no space for boredom.
That's right. Nobody wants to be bored. So again, I'm really curious as to how you're going to justify it. I say I'm really curious. I already know the answer because, as I said, we built a lesson around this, but I'm just pretending to be curious for the sake of you, my listeners.
Uh, we consider boredom to be very unpleasant, and
Yeah, that's right. No one wants to be bored, right?
there are many ways we can swap our boredom away. And in our societies, the most common one is to grab our phones and go spend some time on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot,
Yeah, well, that's one way of doing that.
or call a friend, or do something, anything except doing nothing.
Yes, yes, I, I can agree with that. Yeah.
And that's a shame because studies show that when we do that, when we prevent ourselves from being bored, we are missing out on very important things.
What? Like what, Helen? Tell us. Tell us more. I am on the edge of my seat.
One study placed people uh, alone in a room and with nothing to do.
Oh my God, that sounds like torture, Helen. It sounds like torture. That must have been a secret study that no one knew about. Did these people were these people placed in that room voluntarily? Did they do it on their own accord, or were they forced to be there? Are they one of those animals that are kept in cages in order to do experiments on them? I hope not, Helen.
They were instructed to entertain themselves
Okay. I wonder what happened.
with their thoughts for anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes.
You mean were they with other people in that room, or were they just on their own by themselves, alone in the dark room?
There were nothing to do in the room, and they only had a red button, and they were informed that if they touched it, they would experience an unpleasant electric shock.
That sounds quite shocking, Helen. When I imagine a red button, it's one of those that a president of a country would press in order to launch nuclear weapon or something like that. That's what we uh, call a red button, right? So it's not that kind of button. It's a button, as Helen says, that will release an electric shock upon pressing it. So let's hear from Helen. Like, I wonder how the subjects, let's call them subjects, how they did, if they actually pressed the button because of being bored. Let's hear it.
And maybe it's counterintuitive, but 25% of women and 67% of men preferred to touch the button to
What? And it's interesting that it's 25% of women and more than, was it 65% of men? How is that? What does it say about the difference between men and women? Does it mean that women uh, can handle being bored more than men can? What is this about?
experience physical pain
Oh God, physical pain.
of doing nothing.
Oh, right.
So if boredom is so unpleasant, how can it be beneficial for us? It's beneficial for, let's say, three main reasons.
Okay, I'm all ears. I want to hear now, Helen. You've definitely sold this to me.
It helps us to be more creative when we are left with nothing to do, and more precisely, when among the things we could do, or no one seems, none of them seems appealing to us.
Yeah, like appealing, meaning desirable. Yeah. None of them seems to be something we want to do. Yeah.
Um, our mind, our minds are wandering, and it's the beginning of a creative process. We can think about different things. For example, another study showed that, what was I about to say?
I don't know, Helen.
Um, yeah, that people who are given the most boring task in the world, like reading the phone book, there were the group that was exposed to this boring task, and the other group as well, were asked to be creative about what they can do with a plastic cup. And the group who were exposed to the boring task was way more, not the group, but each person individually, um, was way more creative with what they can do with the plastic cup.
Yeah, I'm just trying to come up with ideas of what you could do with a plastic cup. I suppose you could make something out of it, such as like a craft. Yeah, like you could. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like you could bend the plastic cup, make a different shape out of it, something like that. Yeah, you could just sort of like throw it. You could just throw it against the wall. You could spin it. I can think of a few things you could do with the plastic cups.
Then the one who um, didn't have to spend the to go through this boring task. And another thing that is good with boredom is that, because of the probably there's no certainty, but probably because of the
There are only three certainties in life. Or two? Is it two? Death and taxes. I think it's two, right? Two certainties in life: death and taxes. Helen.
experience when we are bored, the sense of aimlessness. Other studies have shown that those people who feel bored, they tend to be more altruistic, to care more about people. Um,
So that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. So are you suggesting that you are more altruistic, that you are more sort of caring because you're bored? So the people who are good carers, people who look after people, they do it out of boredom. Is that what you're suggesting, Helen?
maybe to find aim to their life, and
Right, like the purpose of life. Yeah, get it.
to even doing unpleasant activities like the example given was giving their blood felt like something interesting to do. And the third benefit of being bored is that because our mind wanders,
Yeah, my mind wanders all the time, Helen.
well, it's both a signal and a push to do something else, to move on. It's a signal that something in our lives is not fulfilling, and it is a push to do something else. And because when we let our mind wander, uh, when we are in activities that requires only a small fraction of our mental abilities, capacities, we can think about the future and make plans for the bigger picture.
Hmm, that's interesting.
Um, that's some of the benefits that came with boredom.
All right. So from now on, I honestly want to be bored as much as I can because of all these benefits you've just described to us.
And yet only a small we don't like to feel bored, and that
I think it might have to do with the fact that we feel guilty. Like whenever I'm bored, I feel guilty because I shouldn't be bored because that means something is wrong with me, right? Something is wrong with my life. So I think that might be the reason because the people who keep themselves really busy, often we see them as having fulfilling lives, a life full of excitement, or at least life that has purpose or something like that. So I think maybe the reason we feel bad about being bored is because we sort of feel guilty that or envious of these people, something like that's my theory anyway, Helen.
that's a few of the things we are missing out when we don't allow us to feel bored, and we can probably now think about boredom as in a more positive way and not something we should avoid at all costs.
Yeah, well, very nice, Helen. You have completely changed my perspective on this. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I hope the listeners did as well.
Um, that's all from me for now. And until next time, bye.
Bye, Helen, and thank you very much for this fantastic recording. So, what do you think? Did you like this? I liked it a lot. Um, so, like I said, I'm going to record another podcast, which will be a mini lesson in which I will look at things we can work on, especially in terms of pronunciation. I think Helen's range of grammar and range of vocabulary is really, really, really good. She's a she's a very strong C1 level, but there are some things to improve when it comes to Helen's pronunciation. I think there is some room for improvement there, and that's what we focus on in our lessons. I think it's difficult when you're French. I think it's true that for French people it's more difficult to learn English because the sounds, the way pronunciation works in French is so different from English that it's just tougher. It's just tougher for French people to get the pronunciation right. Don't forget, listeners, that the accent doesn't matter, and it's actually good for you to listen to someone like Helen, even from the listener's point of view, because you will get exposed to different accents. And you should listen to natives, non natives speakers, because honestly, it's about who you meet in your daily life. who you are going to likely to speak English with. You know, too many people are obsessed with native speakers, but if the English learners are at a high level, like Helene, I think we can all benefit from listening to them. You might have picked up some vocabulary from her. Um, the way she constructs her sentences is very nice. Okay, when it comes to pronunciation, just take the good, and if something isn't, if you might feel it as a learner yourself, if something doesn't sound right, well, then just check it. Yeah, you can always check it in a dictionary, ask your teacher, or become a patron and listen to the episode where I tell you more. But I just want to say, my point is that accents don't matter, pronunciation is important though. Okay, so keep that in mind. And thank you very much for listening to this podcast. Let me know what you think. Is this an interesting way to do a podcast? Yeah, I might do one of these in the future. But perhaps I could go through my favorite podcasts and just introduce my favorite podcasts to you. That's an idea for one of the future podcasts. And yeah, that's all from me today. And
Hello. Yeah, I'm going now. Okay, I'm going. Yeah, fine. Okay, if you don't care, that's fine.
bye, everyone. Goodbye. And don't forget, you can actually watch this on my YouTube channel as well.